All righty.
Thank you, sir, for taking your time and your energy and sitting with me and doing this interview. I have been a long time fan. I really have. I think we've been back and forth a little bit, a
Yeah,
few
we have.
times, trying to get this done. And then I started a podcast because I'm involved in crypto in Bitcoin, that industry, and I started a podcast last year going down that direction to start teaching about crypto and opening the doors to that. And then COVID happened and then everything shifted for me. I had to pivot I felt that I had to pivot towards truth and towards just speaking truth. So I've been a fan of yours and just all your work for so long, your artwork. I've told people I call you the modern day Leonardo da Vinci. Or maybe even, I guess, because Walter Russell was like after Leonardo da Vinci. You're after Walter Russell with your art and just your science and your mathematics, your polymathematical mindset. I love it. So I know you very well, but I want my audience to know you. So if you could just go through your background, your education, life experience, and how you got to where you're at today.
Sure. Well, so basically this is kind of a new thing for me in the last little while. Hold on one second. Okay. So, no, it's okay. So this is sort of a new development for me, I guess, what's been happening over the last, 7 or so years. Before that, I was a pharmaceutical executive, pharmaceutical CEO. So, it's like, every time I say that, people are like, is it like really that evil and dark and all that? I'm like, oh, no, not really. I've never met anyone that was evil in the pharmaceutical industry. But I think that there's something not necessarily fantastic about the pharmaceutical industry as an institution. And, I spent a good part of my life. So I'm grateful for the pharma industry and for the medical device field. I spent a good part of my life in that field, over 20 years. And, I really enjoyed many aspects. So I got to see the world. I've lived in 9 countries. I was born in Texas. I lived in England. My father was in the military, so I was, I grew up in the UK for about 7 years of my life, from the time I was 7 until 14. Then, we moved to Nebraska. And then after that, I went to college and went to graduate school and everything. My studies were I was good in mathematics, but my studies were mainly, most of the math I studied was for the GMAT, I think, which was for the MBA, entrance exam. And, I ended up going to Harvard Business School also for advanced management program. So I was a business person and still am an entrepreneur. And, I was also previously CEO of a company called Bausch & Lomb Surgical, the big eye care company. We made eye drops and intraocular lenses. I actually have one right on my desk right here. This is an intraocular lens sitting inside of here. And one of the companies that I created makes a lens like this that goes inside your eye.
Augmented reality lens?
It goes inside your eye. That tiny little lens, it's only 6 millimeters wide, goes inside your eye, over the lens of your eye. And you can watch TV and everything with it. It's pretty amazing. And that's a new technology that I patented and created about 5 years ago as an idea called Cyber, Ceyber. And, it's basically the next generation of an iPhone, but it goes inside your eye. So you can imagine there's a lot of implications around this. We have a team of engineers that basically work on this. It's super cool technology. I'm very excited about it. We have about 5 of the world's top ophthalmologists that work on this very, very consistently. It's a very exciting project. But
I had a flood of questions just come into my head as you were mentioning all that, because I'm all into tech and all into all that kind of stuff. Biohacking. I know there's a 2 roads you can take with biohacking. I feel like one that's destructive, one that's constructive, one that's building, and one that's tearing down. So I have a lot of questions, but I already had a list of questions that I wanted to get to, but I'm going to come back to this, I think, at the end.
Yeah, sure.
Because I did see a video of you testing out some of that, of the transmission, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely, moving forward. And it's an exciting time. This is not intended to be any different than what we carry with our iPhone today. But, where the technology could go, candidly, we just don't know. We just don't know. But certainly the encryption side of this is going to be really important too, which is also one of the reasons why, I've created a new encryption platform that is founded on something called a one-time pad encryption. So I left the pharmaceutical industry a few years back. I started my own group of companies. I have about 16 companies in the group, half of which are companies I founded, half of which are companies that we acquired. I have a partner and an infrastructure and everything. And I've kind of like gotten to the point where I really enjoy what I do. I get to create things and help bring in and attract top managers and leaders. And then sometimes I stay on the board and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm just the largest shareholder or a major shareholder and try to contribute where I can in a mentoring role also for the CEOs. But I am now at a stage, I think probably for the first time in my life, I think I'm at a stage where I literally get to do all the things I love to do and only those things, which is really...
Not many people can say that.
Yeah, it's a foreign feeling still for me a little bit because I kind of have to pinch myself because I feel very lucky and blessed that I can do that. But that's also why, a lot of my posts on social media have been way more prolific, right? Because I get to spend so much time doing stuff like that because especially now with COVID, right? I mean, it's really caused us all to kind of go more introverted, I guess. But
yeah.
That's kind of, I guess, in a nutshell. I came from the pharma industry. I started off and did my own entrepreneurial stuff. And now our companies span healthcare, technology, fintech, and pharma as well. We do have a couple pharma companies in our portfolio, and we took one public a few years ago. And then we have now also security and energy, so clean energy. And you may know Nassim Haramein. I work with Nassim quite a lot as well.
Resonance University, right? Yeah.
Resonance Foundation, right?
Or Foundation, right.
Resonance Academy. And so, but he's also working on free energy and gravity control type of technologies, which also we participated in and invested in.
Yeah, Taurus Tech and Arc Crystals, 0 point energy. I mean, I can go all day with that too. So you mentioned that you started off with like really intellectual sort of job, right? With a pharmaceutical where you're really just intellect. And I mean, from what I'm learning in my own journey, that we are more than just these physical bodies, right? We're these metaphysical, all these metaphysical layers that we haven't accounted for. Mm-hmm. So where was it in your journey that you realized all of, even like you mentioned Nassim, he's talking about, he's trying to do the theory of unification, right? So where was it in your journey that you realized, oh, it's all connected. I need to pivot and then, and then have that mindset that things are more connected than we were led to believe.
It's funny. I think it first started for me in about 2010. And I was working as a CEO of Bausch & Lomb at the time, and I had to go to Asia. So I flew to Hong Kong for a conference. And one of the people that the local management in Asia Pacific wanted me to meet with was the former country manager for Thailand. So I thought, well, why would I meet the country manager for Thailand? Usually I'd only meet the people that would be, kind of the next rung up type of thing. We had, tens of thousands of employees. And they said, well, this guy's very special. You definitely want to have an interview with him. And I said, absolutely. I would love to meet with him. So, but what makes him so special? And they said, well, he used to work here 5 years ago, but he left and he's just recently come back. And the reason he left is he went on a sabbatical to be a Buddhist monk in a monastery, and he took a 5-year vow of silence. So I said, so I'm like one of the first people he's going to be talking to since he came back.
That's cool.
And they said, yeah. So I was like, wow, that's kind of like breaking the seal type of thing on someone, on talking. And so this is when we still had salad bars, because I bet there's never going to be a salad bar ever again. in the future of humanity after COVID. So I walked over to the salad bar and I was getting a salad for lunch and he was getting a salad. So I was like, hello. I'm like waiting to see how he's going to respond. And I said, so what was it like to be, 5 years in vow of silence, And he says, it was good. And I said, I said, so what did you learn? He said, actually, what I learned was there is no duality. There is no good. There is no bad. There is only one. And so I was like, okay, this guy's going to be coming back to be our country manager for Thailand. I hope he does really well. And by the way, he had such an incredible track record when he did work in the prior years that like, even the person who took over for him after he went on the sabbatical, like willingly gave up the role to give back to this person because it was his mentor.
Wow.
And that's super rare in the pharma industry. It's kind of like a dog eat dog, cutthroat kind of world, right? Of politics and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like kind of dumbfounded by the commentary. And on the flight home, I remember after meeting with him and talking with him, and he was a man of very few words. I remember flying back to the US and I started drawing out on my notebook all the concepts that I would consider would be dualistic. So, just write down a word and then find its antonym, right? And what I noticed was that everything that I had perceived as being linear in gradations of separation from each other was actually spherical or circular at the very least. And so what I mean by that is I wrote down a word like, well, okay, love and hate. Okay, well then I started thinking, well, that's probably not a good one to use on this because there's a fine line between love and hate. It's not this chasm between love and hate, right? Mathematics is the subject we all love to hate in high school. But actually, the reason why people are being awakened now with mathematics is because when you have enough emotion for something to hate it, it means you actually can love it too. So people are getting a new relationship with mathematics because you could flip that polarity. It's a perception that gets flipped, right? So what I realized was I wrote down words like, humility and arrogance. Those should be antonyms of each other, right? And then I realized, well, wait a minute, I know some people that are so humble, profess to be so humble, they become arrogant in their humility. Piety, piousness, right? And so I started looking at all of the things I was writing down, and I noticed that it was all a thin line of perception that separated the two. And, I was like, whoa, okay, so right wing is Republican, left wing is Democrat, or you could go even much further than that because, our left wing here is really more like the right wing in Europe in many ways, right? Because they're that much more social in their sort of thinking. I lived in Europe for many years. So I then noticed, okay, what if I took it to the far extreme of left, which would be communism, and the far extreme of right, which is fascism? How would I differentiate the two? Well, then just like all the other examples, I noticed that, wait a minute, every time a country professes to move towards communism, they become a fascist regime. It looks like fascism. So if you look at a country like North Korea, it's supposed to be communist, right? Kim Jong-un, right? But I'm thinking of Kim Il-sung, right? The father, the grandfather, right? These basically were people that were setting this place up. And at the end of the day, it looks like a fascist regime, although it's a self-proclaimed communist regime. So fascism is a mask, right? Or communism becomes a mask for fascism. And what I noticed is that all things, when I really got down to the analysis of it, become circular. If I step just one step further to the left, I end up at fascism.
I see what you're saying. It's like, let me think about it or try to say it in a different way. It seems to me that it's really about the individual. That's really what it is. The individual and how they perceive this reality will create where they fall, we'll make them fall somewhere on that spectrum, that circular spectrum. But at the end of the day, it's all part of the same little
It's
system.
all part of the same one. You're just looking at one limited viewpoint of it.
Right.
And so that's what happens, is what I realized then is that, wait a minute, all the things that I had thought that I was justifying or doing, or I thought was right versus wrong, were actually just the things that I didn't want to tell everybody else had some benefit to me.
Mm-hmm.
So we justify whatever, whenever we believe there's benefit to us. And we say that's the only ethical choice. And we all do it. We don't even realize we're doing it. And what is sad is that we literally get to a point in our lives where we block off all other potential perspectives because we may be tempted by those perspectives. It's funny. I kind of talk about this pretty often, you know, that if I have an offsite meeting and I ask my team, so I've got several corporate teams, right? And I say, look, you know, how many of you love to gamble in here? Invariably, it's always the accountants who raise their hands. Now, you would say, well, why does the accountant love to gamble? Well, because they're managing money all day, right? So every once in a while, they want to let it out that they can be like reckless with it. And you can apply this same principle to virtually everything. It doesn't matter what it is. You could apply it and you'll see it, you'll see the seeds of it. And so whatever that's why this metaphor of the mask right now is so powerful, right? We're all wearing these masks. Well, it's really a metaphor for what is the mask that we're trying to present the world that we're trying to hide. So it's no secret that, you know, people that become Catholic priests are now under a lot of scrutiny because people would automatically see a Catholic priest today as, okay, maybe they're into, you know, pedophilia or something like that because there's so many cases that have come out, right? But why did they choose Catholic priests in the first place?
Because they represent the opposite side of the spectrum. I see what you're saying.
They wanted to hide that temptation, most importantly, from themselves, right? So this is what happens to all of us. And so we don't even realize it's happening. We just judge everybody else for the things that we perceive as unsightly or not aesthetic or not correct, not ethical. And every time we judge someone else, we're actually just judging ourselves. So if you spot it in someone else, that means you got it yourself. We will attract everything we judge until we no longer judge everything we attract.
Ooh, that was a good one. And I'm glad you segued into that because actually one of my questions is about that. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, something froze here. Hold on a second. My computer seems to have frozen. There you are. Okay, you're back. Sorry, it was a glitch for a second. So you segued into something that I was wanting to ask, which is, so you know the law of attraction, right? The law of attraction. I mean, The Secret. I've seen the movie. I've read the book. My question to you about that, because you're right. If we're all just mirroring from each other what our own traumas or what our own issues are. We're projecting it right into other people. I read that in the Four Agreements. Don Miguel Ruiz, he talks about how we're just we're mirrors. We're in the smoky in the shadow world, right? We're showing each other shadow to each other. And so with the law of attraction, what is your belief? Are we actually creating our reality based on that emotion that we're having and that projection that we're doing? Or are we actually attracting more of that reality? What is actually happening when it comes to the force? Is there me creating the reality around me, or is it just me attracting more of that reality towards me?
Can I say both?
You can say both. How so? How would you is it both working at the same time with the same powerful force?
Because it's just a separation. We tend to designate those two things you just described as the effects of the conscious mind and the effects of the subconscious mind. So the subconscious mind is all the things that would be the subtle that you're not even aware of, that you're subconsciously creating around you, right? It's not the you universe, it's the you inverse. So you could look at the world around you. We can't, 90% of what happens to us is, not really what happened to us. 90% of what happens to us is what we perceive happened to us. That's not
right, because we're only perceiving a very tiny fraction of this reality. It's something. What is it? It's crazy, right? It's like 99.9% of this reality is we don't perceive it.
Well, then that's right. So, you think about the subconscious mind and all the things the subconscious mind has to do. It's running all of the cells in your body right now, somehow, some way, autonomically, right? Trillions and trillions of cellular functions are happening right now inside your body that you're not consciously aware of. It's like, can you walk and chew gum at the same time? Right? And it's the same thing. We can only have about 18 things that we can do all at the same time, max. There have been studies done on this as well.
Consciously or subconsciously?
Consciously.
Okay.
Yeah, like you could be driving, chewing gum, listening to the radio, right? Texting possibly, right? All these things you could be doing, or even talking on the phone or whatever, these complex functions, but there's a limit to how much you can cram into the conscious mind. But the subconscious mind doesn't really have a limit. And that limitlessness becomes our universal experience. We see all the things around us and the things that trigger us. So every time we see a trigger that bugs us, bothers us, right? I used to go nuts whenever I'd see, right after Donald Trump was elected, man, it drove me crazy. Like, my wife bitched at me about it. Everyone bitched at me about it. Because I'd see it, I'm like, I can't stand this. Why can't he just listen, he's not stupid. Why? He's a smart guy and his policies aren't all crazy. Some of the things are not totally nuts, but the way the tone and everything is just off. And
he's very crass. He is.
Extremely crass, right? It's like, what? Come on. And the thing is, though, is I actually had to take a moment of self-introspection and say, what is it about him that's bugging me and making me so upset? And it was a major shift for me. You talk about major turning points. When I realized the things that I was judging in him were actually characteristics that I have.
And I would agree. I think that's, if anything, I would say that's the tools of the devil, man. It's projection and fear, or projection and shame. They project that feeling that they have onto someone and then shame them for what they're saying, which then goes with, that I would say most of the media does this. It's not journalism anymore. It's just opinions. And it comes with this emotion. And so you're watching this and you're like, why am I angry now all of a sudden? Well,
but I think the message there from the subconscious is, it's given us this lens to look at the world around us to see where we have pain or trauma or shame, guilt, right? And how do we transmute that density of shame and guilt into a new element, right? Mm-hmm. Something that's better, something that is no longer in opposition to us, but rather in confluence with us. And that, I think, is the great message here. And that's why everyone in the world is having such a hard time dealing with this, because we're all waking up to the fact that we're all full of bullshit.
And it seems as though this whole experience, this whole COVID thing happening is the, like the not the petri dish, that's a negative way of saying it, but like the place where all of this is going to be birthed. Like people are having the opportunity to have to live in those really dark areas, emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever, to then go, whoa, I don't like this, or at least be aware of what's happening. So that nobody wants to be
confronted by their shame.
Say that again?
Nobody wants to be confronted by their shame. Exactly. When you get confronted by your shame, right, you can have multiple different kinds of reactions, and most of them are adverse, negative reactions. So the universe has to confront us with our shame in a way that is absorbable. And the way we get confronted with that shame is by experiencing the same patterns over and over and over again until we finally figure it out.
Mm. Or like a big event has to happen, like a shocking event.
Yes,
right?
a shocking event, but you have to connect the dots.
Mm. Yeah.
We
Test that
ourselves
belief
have to
system.
connect the dots. It can't be someone coming to us, right? It's like if I go to my daughter and say, okay, do this, do this, do this. We actually have a game with my daughter. She doesn't like to eat very much, right? She's fine. She just doesn't eat all of her dinner. And so, we don't want to be the parents like, eat all your food, type of thing, because that also could be another thing. So we came up with this other thing. We're like, no, you can't eat all that food. And she's like, yes, I can. Right? Yes, I can. I can too. And then all of a sudden it's all gone. See, I could do it. It's like, and my wife and I look at each other. We're like, man, she's just like us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why would we expect any different, right?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up your daughter. I saw the TED talk that you gave, and you gave, I think, like half of it was 7 or 8 minutes was just about the birth of your daughter. And I love how you ended, and it has to do with this, which is about just the reality you create or your perception, and what are you attracting towards yourselves. It reminded me of Dr. Joe Dispenza. He talks about, he's the best. So yeah. Have you met him already? I met him in one time when I went to a conference, to a bulletproof conference. I was able to meet him.
Nassim is friends with him, and we're going to try to get together at some point. Because, I spent a lot of time with Nassim, but, I'm still relatively new. I didn't post anything or do anything. I've been known as a business person for my whole career. And probably most known for my time at Allergan. I launched Botox. So how funny is this? I launched, Juvederm, Lap-Band, Latisse, all these products. And it was funny because only a few weeks ago, I was invited on November 11th to be part of this like pyramid activation, right?
Oh, 11/11, yeah.
On 11/11. And so they asked the like indigenous people of each of the places where there are pyramids. So Romania, there was a Bosnia pyramid, right? And all these people were asked to represent. So the Toltec shaman of the Teotihuacan Plateau in Mexico was on this Zoom call, right? And exactly 1 year before, Nassim and I were both made shaman of the Toltec tribe. So I recognize that guy because he's the pyramid guardian, right, of the Toltec, of the Toltec indigenous peoples. And I was kind of laughing though, because exactly 1 year before, I was, in Teotihuacan on the day with this guy who did the ceremony with Nassim and myself, and he bestowed upon us these rights and privileges that we were not expecting at all. I mean, not at all. It was an incredible experience. But here I'm seeing it exactly 1 year later on 11/11, and now we're doing a pyramid activation, and they asked me to represent the Great Pyramid or to be the guardian of the Great Pyramid. And I was like, wow, first of all, that was a great honor I wasn't expecting to have, right? But I have spent a lot of time in the Great Pyramid, and I've discovered a lot of things in the Great Pyramid, so I could understand why maybe they would think to ask me to do it. But it was interesting for me the juxtaposition of my experience, because on that exact day, one of my companies that makes a neurotoxin that competes with Botox is a company called Evolus, and it has a product called Jeuveau. And Jeuveau is like the new neurotoxin that's taking a ton of market share. It's like close to number 2 now, I think, in the market. If not, it's already going to be moving into number 2 position. And it went public a few years ago. But November 11th is the Jeuveau Day, like the National Jeuveau, the National Toxin Day. And the reason why they chose that date is because when I was also at Allergan, we had this term that said, lose your 11s. So these 2 little crease lines you have in your forehead right here, right, are shaped like 11, right? And so they're frown lines. So you have a frown, you've got a perfect set of 11, you've got a perfect 11 there. You've got a portal. You've got a portal right there. You got a portal right there to your pineal gland. There you go, dude. You got that perfect.
So is that what that means? Huh.
Yeah. So we did all these conferences and everything called Lose Your 11s. So lose your 11s. So when Evolus decided to, announce a national day for their product, they decided to have it be on 11/11 because it's 11s, right? So I'm sitting here laughing because I'm thinking 10 years ago, 11 years ago, my life was about teaching people about a problem they didn't even know that they had, right? Which is 2 little lines here in your forehead. And just think about that for a moment, right?
Yeah, no.
Which
Just
is kind of
on
telling
law of
everybody,
attraction.
yes, which is kind of telling everybody, in a way, you know, we did it in nice marketing and everything, but in a way, we're raising. I mean, like now, if you go to Hollywood, if you have any lines on your forehead, people are like, "Oh, dude, what's wrong? You know, what's wrong
Are
with
you
you?
okay? Yeah.
Are you okay?" Exactly. And so now it's kind of like my whole life is swapped from my message then was, okay, lose your 11s. Not that 11s are bad, but lose them anyway, right? And now it is, okay, enter the portal of 11. And the only thing you really need to know and love and learn is to accept yourself and be happy with exactly who you are. Love that person, accept that person. You don't need anything more. You don't need to do anything more. You're good enough as you are. So
it's almost as if you created your own circle spectrum, going from one side of the spectrum to the other.
And we all do. We all do. We all have a beautiful journey. We experience the universe. And it's such an incredibly beautiful journey. We don't know how all the dots connect until we can see them in the retrospect. Yeah. But all the dots do connect. They all do connect. It's just, we have to put on the vision, right? We need to have the lens. I just showed you a lens, right? We need to have the lens of being able to see the world as happening for us instead of it happening to us. It's happening for and through us. And that answers, I think, your question about conscious mind, subconscious mind. There are certain things, obviously, that we bring into the conscious mind. There's only so many things a conscious mind can do. So it's important you're very, deliberate about your choices on what goes into your conscious mind. And I don't allow things, people say this to me all the time. They're like, oh, I need to tell you what the potholes are in this strategy or in this idea you've got, right? Because I'm constantly speaking about the future as if it's today, right? And so people are like, yeah, but you don't know, there's a big pothole here and you could drive off the cliff over here. And, and I would often go back to them and say, look, and this was true even when I was in the pharma industry. I would say, well, if you're skiing down a mountain, what is the thing they tell you not to focus on? Don't focus on a tree.
Yeah.
Because if you focus on a tree, you're going to ski right into the tree, right? If you focus on a pothole on the street, you'll drive right into the pothole. So know that they're there, but don't ruminate on them. Don't focus on them. Focus instead on seeing yourself navigate around them. So don't let yourself get pulled into that negative spiral. And then when you see things that are also like triggering you, check in with yourself and say, what is it about this that's triggering me? Why am I getting triggered? And what is it that the universe wants me to learn from this circumstance? How can I increase my empathy? Because if I increase my empathy for everybody else, will I not also then increase my empathy for myself? And maybe I won't feel as much shame.
And I love how you said that. I tell people all the time, wherever your focus goes, your energy will flow.
Right.
And if you're not aware of what your actions are from those traumas and those past mindsets, then your energy is going to be flowing out of you, and you don't know why, and you don't know what's going on. So I love how you really laid that out really beautifully. I wanted to ask you a question. I asked my audience if they had any questions that they wanted to ask you. So I want to make sure I get to those before we finish. So one of the questions I had was, for time travel specifically. Time travel.
As one does, right?
I know that's a pivot, right?
Yeah, that's a softball question. Okay.
So time travel. Somebody asked me, time travel, is it possible to change our past? And how? Because we all know about what's his name, Einstein, and the law of relativity and how that relates to time travel. So what would your perspective be, knowing what you know now with time travel?
So I used to think that And even when I did my TED Talk, I used to think, there's no such thing as destiny because you can kind of control your destiny, right? And this is the ultimate of the egoic mind, right? And I was definitely kind of at that stage in life where I was like expressing my persona. And I used to think all the time, it's like, well, it doesn't matter what it was. In fact, I used to buy watches, right? So this is kind of a funny story. So I would buy expensive watches. And this is not an expensive watch. This is just a Garmin, digital watch. I have probably, I don't know, lots of watches that are nice.
Same. I had like 10.
Yeah, I have. I'm embarrassed to say. I'm not even going to say. So I have lots of watches. And I used to buy watches for the purpose of collapsing a wave function of possibilities into a reality that I wanted. So if I woke up on a day that, one time I woke up in Shanghai and I was with my daughter. I was on vacation with her. She's the one from the TED Talk. She's 24 now. And she was, I think she was 18 at the time. It was right after she graduated. We had a great time. But I woke up and I was feeling stressed because one of the companies that I was, taking to market was having some struggles, right, to get enough capital so that it could get to the public markets. It finally did, and everything worked out. But I was like, facing that monster in my mind of, okay, could I get eaten, right? I got to raise all this capital. How am I going to raise all this capital? It needs more capital than what I even contemplated I could think I would need. And we're talking about lots and lots of money at the time. And so I was stressed about it. And I woke up, and so I said to my daughter, I'm like, hey, we're going to go shopping today for a little bit. And we went to this store, and I've been looking at this one watch, right? It was a particular type of watch, and it had an octagonal face on it, and I liked the octagonal face. And so I've been wanting to buy that watch. It's expensive, very expensive. So I went into the store, and here I was feeling a lack because I was thinking, how am I going to raise the money for this, right? So what I did is I went in and I would do this all the time. I would buy an expensive watch and burn the ships. It's kind of like the story of you've probably heard, it's not a great story about Cortez, where he comes and he's bringing 300 men on like 5 ships or so to Mexico. And he's like, okay, there's 300 of us, there's 3 million Aztecs, and we're going to get all their gold, right? Mm-hmm. And so the men go to relieve themselves in the forest. They come back to the shore and their ships are all on fire. Mm-hmm. He's like, why'd you do that? He's like, well, there's no going back. The next ships don't arrive from Spain for a year. So we have to all survive and we're going to get the gold, right? The rest is history. Not a very kind history, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. But it is history nonetheless. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of had a similar mentality. I was like, okay, if I was feeling stressful because of lack, I would buy a watch that was very expensive. And I would burn the ships. And in the process, I would give myself the gift of this watch. And I would imagine every time I looked at the watch that I had succeeded in the thing that I was afraid I would fail at. So it was like after the fact. I would imagine the outcome before it would happen, and I would give myself the gift. Now, most people would give themselves the gift for having accomplished something. Mm-hmm. No, I did the opposite. I would give myself the gift for feeling the fear, right? And then overcoming that fear, and then imagining a state that I wanted to have the outcome be. And it always came out that way. And
I love that.
I
love that. It's like you're taking the situation, you're going, how can I alchemize this? How can I flip this so that you can embody the reality, which then essentially attracts it to you and creates it around you. Oh.
So, but what's deep and intense, right? Because, and the reason I chose watches for that is because it was always a problem related to time, right? It was always something in the future. And I noticed at that point in my life also, I was always placing conditions on time. So I would say, oh, things will be better when this happens. Things will be much better when my divorce is settled. Or things will be much better when we go public, or when this happens. So everything was conditionalized. My happiness became conditionalized on achievement of things. Now, what I then learned to do is to transcend and move beyond that, which was a necessary part of the past. I had to go through each of those steps to be able to realize that, well, wait a minute. If I have to brute force will everything, right? That's going to cause an unhappy life for me, an imbalanced life. Maybe there's a way I can just surrender and know that my higher self wants the same things for me.
Prepare for anything, let go of all expectations.
Exactly. So instead of
I love that.
having this vision in my mind of what I wanted the outcome to be, I changed it to having a vision of my mind of the future state without attachment to it. So imagine the thing that I want in the past, but minus the want. So I think one of the biggest challenges we all face right now in the world is that many of us, probably most, seek anything that will not give us shame, and the opposite of shame. So is something that we'll receive, right? And all the things that give us shame, we want nothing to do with. Nobody wants to like be, oh yeah, I'm ashamed of this, I'm ashamed of, nobody's literally saying what they're ashamed of, right? That's just not the way the world is built. But actually, what I realized is that the key to living that type of life, you talk about The Secret, you talk about manifestation, et cetera, right? Mm-hmm. Joe Dispenza type mentality, is to drop the K in the word seek. Don't seek the perfection, just see it. See the perfection around you, and that will multiply itself into your life. See the abundance around you. So I don't need to go through and buy endless watches, right? It's not necessary for me anymore. It was at that point in time. So I want nothing to do with changing my past. I love my past. I love my past because it is exactly what led me here. So now I realized that what I used to call free will, right, and destiny and the separation between the two, now I realize that destiny is just the free will of the higher self. Mm. And that there's an aspect of us that is outside of space-time. And that aspect of us that's outside of space-time is leading and guiding us through every intricate tapestry, not only through this lifetime, but through multiple lifetimes. That we literally will leave ourselves encryptions from past lives for you to find in the next.
I'm so glad you said that. If you want to finish, sorry.
No, go ahead. So that's basically the point I wanted to make, which is, can you change the past? Well, the question is, can you change the future? To me, I'm happy surrendering to whatever the past and the future are. Those two things are entangled. They're connected. Now, here's what I will tell you, that does happen. As you go through life, as what I've noticed, is that whenever I transmute something successfully, I take a former shame or former very bad traumatic situation and see it and accept it with love. That is changing the past. Because history is just
healing the
that's right. Yeah. That's changing the past, because everything that happens is based on our perception, whether it's good or bad or whatever. And what we don't know and what we don't want to admit to is that the things that are bad are the things that we think will direct us shame. And the things that we think are good are the things that we think will get us away from shame, right? And get us notoriety or social, sort of prestige or whatever. So it's all our perspective. So the past as it was, you could say that was a horrible, horrible thing that happened, or it could be the very best thing that ever happened to you. What transmutes it is your perception of it. And to me, that's a different way of looking at it, but it is no less powerful than actually changing the physical events.
I love that. You said it so beautifully. And it's funny because I asked that question thinking it was going to go a whole different route when it comes, because, you think of time travel, think of a little differently with science, the way that science explains it. But I 100% agree with you. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the past lives, and that we get these, like, not hints, but, guides throughout our lives from those past lives. And somebody mentioned to me that you have the ability or the connection to those past lives, that you can pull on them pretty easily. And so my question is, how easily is that for you? Like, what is your practice to do that? And would you say that some of the subconscious communications are repetitive numbers? Like a numeral, like 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 4, 4, 4.
Yes.
So go ahead.
The universe speaks to us. The entire code of the universe is a mathematical, geometric, musical code. So you could say that music and math are just opposite ends of the spectrum of duality that we perceive.
Ooh, I love that. Wow.
So the nexus that connects the two is the same place that the brain is really responsible for language. And that nexus is geometry. So geometry sits in between these two mirror, opposites of math and music. And actually that's the way it is in the brain too. So on the left side of the brain, right, which if you're right-handed, is governing all your rational thought. This is the side of your brain that says, no, don't do that, right? Don't burn your hand, okay? And then the right side of the brain, again, if you're right-handed, is the more feminine side. So this is the masculine side, this is the feminine side. The feminine side helps you dream, right? It's your creativity, the seat of your imagination. And where we take in an experience, like the part of your brain that lights up when you're listening to good music, is going to be on this right side of the brain, right here, right above the temporal, area, just right in this area right here. And mathematics is this side. So it's literally like mirror neurons, right? The experience is exactly a mirror of each other. And geometry is right at the center. And why is it that geometry is so powerful? You just look at a simple image, I'm in like Zoom calls all day long. And so what do I draw, right? Most of my stuff now that I draw, I end up posting. Because like literally I'll draw like 5 or 6. I just put, I think it was like 75 new scanned images of my artwork on my website. And they're putting another 430 up, and they're only from this year. That's why we decided to call the folder 2020, right? So 2020 folder, it's 500 pieces of art that I don't even know how it happened. Seriously. Like I'm just on conference calls or whatever, and I'll turn the camera off and I'll like be drawing something, and then another one goes out. Well, the thing is that as we connect to this language of the universe, which is a mathematical, geometric, and musical language of the universe, we have to know how to read, just as any language, we have to know how to interpret that language. We have to know first that it even exists. And that takes a leap in and of itself, because you have to change and unlearn, in large part, what you have learned. We tend to teach in the education curriculum at universities this notion of entropy and separation, when actually nothing is separated, everything is connected. Everything, it's just like this backdrop you have behind you. Everything is connected. If you have a universe that's totally random, how is it possible that you would have even one pattern? Because therefore, it is not random. So if you have only one pattern, then the entire thing must be patterned. Maybe what we call randomness is really just our inability to comprehend the rest of the encryption.
Yeah, Nikola Tesla said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, you must think in terms of waves, frequency, and vibrations.
Absolutely. So this is exactly the point, that the universe arranges itself in consciousness in this geometric form, numerical form. So it's no wonder then that Carl Jung, wrote several books and chapters on this concept of synchronicities. And what you'll notice is that as you start to really wake up to the role you play in creating your you inverse, you will start to see more and more synchronicities. It's funny, I was on the phone with Adam Apollo the other day, and we were talking about physics. Mm-hmm. And we had written a paper together, and I was talking to him about how I found the connection between 1/x and geometry, and it happened to be through the right triangle and through the flower of life. And And so I said, wow, it's almost as if we're in some sort of simulation or something. And no kidding, this car cuts me off. I was on the highway driving to LA. This car cuts me off. I almost hit it from behind. And I look at the license plate and it says simulation.
Nope. Nope.
So I took a picture of it. I sent it to him. I was like, you're not going to believe this. This car just cut me off right when you said, it's like it's a holographic simulation. And the car cuts me off. It says simulation. I'm like, oh my gosh. Right. So,
you ask and you shall receive, right?
Exactly. We can all laugh about that. But, it's anyone that says they know how the pyramid was built, anyone that says they know every detail of all the ancient mysteries and stuff, they don't really know. And the same is true for our universe. There's
for you to say that, that's amazing, because you've been there. You've done enough.
I've done a lot of work on it, but every day it's like a new mystery unfolding. And that's the beauty of life. And I used to think all the time, oh, it'll be great when this or great when that. Now I'm just like relaxing into loving the journey, because that's actually what it's all about. Learn to love yourself, learn to love the journey, love the player, love the game.
Yeah, I tell people it's once you make that shift, right, into a love-based, to where your actions are now love-based, the pressures and the anxiety and all those low vibe feelings just literally start leaving your body, because you're letting go of what to expect, which is like part of this capitalistic competition system that we live in. Is like expect more or want more, this consumerism. But when you let go and you do it love-based, things completely shift.
Well, and it's interesting because I think the world is going through a major shift right now, exactly as you described. And the love-based is what I call heart-based consciousness. Mm. So, I'm a Taurus. Taurus is bull-headed, right? We're stubborn. No one says bull-hearted. Everyone always says, you could say lion-hearted, but for Leo, but it's
bull-hearted. Yeah, that doesn't sound right.
Bull-hearted doesn't sound right, but it's bull-headed. We're stubborn. We're very stubborn. Mm. So I'm very logos-oriented, extremely logos-oriented, but the logos has to merge with the pathos. To get to the next level, it's about recognizing the necessity and the beauty, more importantly than its necessity, the beauty of love, the beauty of heart-based awareness. And when those two come together, logos and pathos, then the center of your brain lights up. And that center of your brain is where the pineal gland is. It's the corpus callosum, right? The hypothalamus. You've got all of that that's acting like an electric canopy. It literally lights up. And what's amazing to me about this is your whole perception then changes. Your experience with time also changes. Your experience with other people dramatically shifts, and the people that come into your life change. They are also different. They all start going through changes. And this is that awakening. This is that enlightenment path. That is samadhi. And it's an exciting time to be in the world today, to be living and experiencing this. But this heart-brain consciousness is what also opens us up to being able to see the connectedness of the universe, as well as it opens us up to being able to see and interpolate the encryptions of the universe that we leave for ourselves also. And those encryptions, right, can only be seen with a heart-brain eye. Can't be seen. That's the third eye, the heart-brain eye. That's the merger of masculine and feminine. So it's not just about women. The rise of the feminine is not just about women, getting into positions of power around the world and becoming the new matriarchy, replacing an anachronistic patriarchy. It's more about, in my view, this merger of consciousness. Mm. That there is feminine within you. There is feminine within me. And the feminine is not something that I should avoid or be ashamed of, but rather it's something I should embrace. It's my love consciousness. It's my heart. And that heart, combined with the brain, pathos, and logos together, allows you to peer into new dimensions. That is the doorway. It's through the heart. It's not through the brain. That is 100% fact. But that is the only way that you get to the higher order mathematics. So I'll show you.
You have to allow, oh, that was good. You have to allow the heart in for you to start leveling up. Correct. On the greater conscious.
So this is something I just drew. Okay, now you're like going, what the heck is this thing, right?
Yep, gibberish to me.
This is a new equation I just found. Okay, now you're going to see this for the first time. Nobody else has seen this.
I feel special. Thank you.
You're getting. I've worked on this for 2 years. No kidding.
I feel really special now. I'm gonna have to buy you a beer or something or whatever, right. A green drink for healthy.
Drink. So if there's one thing that I have worked on nonstop for the last 2 years, it's this problem. Okay? And it actually relates to time itself. Absolutely. So I just showed you a picture, right, of, so I can pull it up here so you can actually see it better. Let's see here. Okay. Okay. So can you see this?
I see it.
This equation? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. So you're like, what the heck is that? That's craziness. Right? What the heck is that? Well, Z is a public key value in cryptography. Okay? And so I've defined each of these. So this is just the public key. You don't need to know any other information but the public key. And yet, from this, I can now solve this. All right, can you see this?
Yes.
So all I did was put in. Now, normally, in order for you to know the product of two, in order for you to know the two factors of a semi-prime number, a number that is the product of two prime numbers multiplied by each other, right? Normally what you would need to know is you need to know one of them, because how could you solve the other? Or you just do a big trial and error test. And this is why public key cryptography, which is what cryptocurrency everybody uses, everybody, like literally everything, is founded on the mathematics that I'm about to show you. Okay.
Oof. Okay.
Which is, I take a public key value, right? That becomes your encryption, and only you know the two private keys. And when the number's big enough, then it takes a really long time for a computer to do the actions necessary. It's called a discrete logarithm, in order to do all the trial and error tests necessary to come up with the right two answers. Now, you only need one of the prime factors to know the answer, right? If you know one, you can just divide it by the public key value. But the private key values, and this is what your Bitcoin wallet is based on. So your Bitcoin wallet has a public key value that is your identification.
Right.
Okay. There are private keys associated with it. If you forget your private keys, then you're kind of screwed, because unless someone can figure out how to crack that number, which is very large, right, which takes millions of years on a computer, well, no more. So what this is I took a value of 51,219,733. And I love this. I literally just put this in my computer this morning. And you can see I have no other value going into this equation except for that value itself.
Right. With
very, very simple transformations, right? So I take, 51,219,733. And then I take 51,219,733 square root minus 51,219,733. And this is rounding up to the next integer. So it actually goes up to, the square root value, which is like 7,000 something or other, plus one integer. That's why it has this round thing up on it. And then divide that by 51,219,733 plus one, and then take its square root minus the square root of the public key value. and that's what 0.5 does. It's the square root value, right? And then I subtract this same very similar equation, and it pops out a value that then I can put into Pythagorean theory. So effectively, this is Pythagorean theory. So it is C minus A of the sides of a right triangle. So C squared minus A squared is going to give me B squared. And then I can, from that, find the exact prime factor, right? So then C minus A, but not squared, this is not squared now, they're square root values, right? C minus A is going to give me one of the prime factors. And look at this right here. So with no other information other than the public key number going in, I just cracked this public key value.
And what is that? How does that relate to crypto? And like, what can you do with that?
Well, it means if you lose your key to your identification, I can get you back in.
So what's that? But you would need to know, can you do that for any public address, or do you need to know which one is yours?
I would need to know which one is yours, but I could do it to any public address if I were given the public address for whatever account you're looking at. Now, some people change their public keys often. Some people don't. Most people don't, in fact.
They don't.
But
no.
No, they don't. So as long as I know your public key, whatever your public key number is, I can now factor it into private keys.
This is big information.
That's what I'm saying. I've been working on this, right? Now, what's interesting about this is look how beautiful this is. So what this does is it gives me this very simple relationship just with the number one. So when you know something is simple, it's right.
I was going to say, yeah, the more simple something is usually when it's the.
Yeah. Here's another one.
Yeah.
Same exact equation, put in a different public key value, gives me exactly one of the prime factors right here. Because it all relates back to simple Pythagorean theory, which is this right here. Right? Actually, I have a better picture of it here. So this is what I discovered. I posted it on social media not long ago. And it's that nobody knew that there's a relationship between right triangles and factorization. But here's the relationship. So you take the square root of the public key. Let's say the public key in this case is 299. How does it relate to a right triangle? Well, this is actually the two private keys multiplied by each other square rooted. So x times y square root. The hypotenuse will always be x plus y divided by 2. And the base will always be y minus x divided by 2. Now, this is not a relationship known in academic mathematics today. It is a simple right triangle. So what this means then is that I can simply find, if I want to know what the factors are for 299, I take c minus a and c plus a, and those are my two factors for x and y. So 18 plus 5 equals 23. 18 minus 5 equals 13. 13 times 23 are the two private keys that multiply to create 299.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, is you're saying that it doesn't matter what number you input into this equation, because if it looks like it's like a circuit, like an egg theory type situation, where this is the universe we live in. This is the physics inside the universe. You found the door or the key to open the door for that universe to find the spectrum. You
know how I found it? It's actually pretty beautiful. But so what I realized was that, and you may have seen I did some posts on this, that I found a ruler embedded inside of right triangles, right? So I posted a bunch of pictures of like a ruler underneath here, and it was exactly the same value as rulers when I used 4 inches for the diameter of this circle. They gave me exactly inches, right? And so I was like, that's really interesting. How in the heck is that doing it? And the reason why I marked those points along here is because I marked where there were intersections. Now notice,
Oh, I see.
See where this circle right here crisscrosses that circle? Right? See where this line crisscrosses that line? See where this circle crisscrosses another circle? This is just the flower of life. See where this circle crisscrosses this circle? I circled all of those points. Then I plotted lines directly through it because that is what nature is doing. It's marking. Then exactly this becomes the value, whatever this number is here, it becomes 1 over the square root of whatever this number is here, 299. So it splits it all up perfectly into a ruler. And what happens is that at each of these locations, it will inform for you exactly another perfect square root value for the hypotenuse. So if this is exactly 1 over this value, and that's 299, the next value will be the square root of 300.
I see now. Yep.
The next value will be the square root of 303. The next value will be the square root of 308. The next value will be the square root of 315. Well, this is the only one that makes the perfect right triangle to factorize, because there's only one right triangle for factorization. And this happens to be the only number whose square root value will come out to a whole integer with no fraction, a perfect square. So 300 square root does not do that. 303 square root does not do that. Square root of 308 doesn't do that. Square root of 315 doesn't. None of these other numbers do that. Only 324 does it, and that is what's unique about factorization. All of these two numbers must be perfect squares for side A and side C, and side B will be the public key value. So if you're not a little freaked out, you probably should be.
No, I'm speechless because I'm still trying to process, because I can see what you're saying here.
Yeah. So it's actually quite simple. All you do is you take the side, so the square root of 324 is 18. So this is the old a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So 18 minus 5 is 13, 18 plus 5 is 23, 23 times 13 equals 299. That is the relationship of a Pythagorean triangle. And I'll show you something from Nakamoto's webpage, okay? I'm sure you've probably seen that page before. And it's kind of funny because he almost like predicted this. And you're getting it announced right here. No one's ever heard this before. So, okay. So on Nakamoto.com, he talks about encryption. Now, most people think blockchain is encryption. Well, people that aren't really sophisticated in the industry, right? But people that are know that, no, it relies on both symmetric and asymmetric encryption types, right? So symmetric is what is used for stored data, and that'd be like advanced encryption standard, right? And asymmetric encryption is what is used for transferring data. Asymmetric would be public key encryption, okay? So the public key is your identity. Now, both elliptic curve, which is what Bitcoin uses for your identity, for the wallets, and RSA encryptions use the same, they depend on this concept of factorization. And it takes millions of years to factorize numbers, right? Large numbers. And, but basically, you know, the thing is that there are no other encryption types today. There are no other approved encryption types today that can be used, except for something called a one-time pad that is already recognized by NIST as being the uncrackable encryption, right? And it is quantum resistant right off the bat. Now, quantum computers, by the way, I just showed you a math solution. I don't need a quantum computer to do it, but quantum computers are required or believed to be required to crack these large encryption numbers, right? So that's why they're making these. Well, you can use the math I just showed you on any computer. It doesn't require quantum computing. So they've often said, okay, well, it's 5 years away, it's 10 years away, don't worry about it, it's far away, right? We'll find some other solution, right? And NIST put together a competition and everything for that as well. But you know, this same factor-based encryption has been around for 40 plus years. Okay, and the reason why one-time pad is not used is because the keys have to be really long. So whatever length your data is has to be the length of your key. So if you have a 1 gigabyte file to send, you have to send a 1 gigabyte key. Until we solved it and we figured out a way to do it using square root values, which are infinite, And we only have to send a few digits over to you and you can unlock your, billion digit key, right? It decompresses because the square root is just a compression. It's a 3-digit representation or 4 or 5-digit representation of an infinite string of numbers, right? So the square root of 5 has 5 embedded within it, but it's an infinite number series. It's 2.236 infinite, right?
Sure.
So basically, elliptic curves are what's used today, and the mod function is prime factorization. It's the same thing. But then he says, well, what about the mathematical foundations of all of this, right? And he says, generally, we establish security of any cryptographic scheme through a reduction, essentially a proof that if you could break this cryptographic scheme, you'd also be able to solve another really hard problem. The knapsack problem, a famously computational hard problem, has a reduction to Boolean satisfiability. We're pretty sure Boolean satisfiability is hard, so we feel pretty safe in saying that the knapsack problem is also hard. Okay, so lots of people have tried and failed, so therefore, but that's not really a good proof, right, about the strength of an encryption. It may sound like a weak form of confidence. So the knapsack problem is as hard a Boolean as Boolean satisfiability, but how hard is that? We don't know for sure. Okay, we do know a few things are definitely computationally hard. Okay. And for most problems, short of a hardness proof, all we could say is how many researchers have we thrown at this problem who failed to come up with the fast algorithm? The higher the body count, the more confident we become that it's probably truly hard to factor integers. But it's possible, it's always possible we'll wake up tomorrow to an unsettling headline and all of our RSA-based systems will be permanently broken.
I had never read that. And this is on the Nakamoto website, isn't it? Wow.
Yep. So,
is this what you did here? Is this what you did, sir?
That's exactly what I did.
Wow. This is big news.
That's exactly what I did. And so what I'm trying to say is that the answer to these kind of very challenging, vexing mathematical and physics problems can only come through the heart. So everyone has to go through their path, right? And as we awaken to these higher understandings, whenever somebody says, oh, they're getting, lots of, new research done and everything, it's going really, really well. What I found is that if that person doesn't understand how to love himself or herself, or if that person is very rude to other people, right, or very judgmental of other people, then very likely the output they will have, it might be really smart research, but their output will be very overly complicated. It'll be very complicated. It'll be very difficult to decipher. And it comes from a place also usually of wanting to show the world, how difficult it is, whatever it is that they do. And, it's funny, I just did this video, it's going to be debuting on my website probably later today it's like a documentary, and it's like 20 minutes long, and it kind of goes through my whole life story and type of thing, but in a very nice, the makers of it did a beautiful job of it. And in the video, I say, I don't really consider myself a mathematician. I don't consider myself a mathematician because that would put me into a narrow bucket. I'm so much more than that. All of us are, right? Why do we put these narrow titles to ourselves of who we are? No, that's not who we are. My name is about as broad as I can give myself a title, but actually much broader than the name because I'm not separate, right? That's just
don't put your label on me, man.
Exactly.
I get that.
So I say I don't consider myself a mathematician. I consider myself a human being who's just learning the language of the universe that I live in. And that is exactly how I feel. So I'm not out there trying to impress any mathematicians because I frankly don't, I'm respectful of their hierarchies and of the things that they do. But I also know that it doesn't change the outcome one way or another. I don't need to impress them. I have no desire to impress them. I never thought of myself as a mathematician, and I still don't. And yet I've discovered now a lot of math. Having the Pythagorean theory be absolutely embedded into prime factorization that is, you know, a stepping stone of information for us to go to the next level and experience. And that I'm very excited that I can actually help bring it to the world, you know, that it actually is embedded so simply and beautifully in every single time, without exception. So, you know, I think that we're at such an exciting period. I think we're all going through this shift, and as we can learn to just accept the world around us, don't put conditions. You know, maybe this whole time in COVID where, you know, we're back in quarantine again, maybe there's a reason for it, and let's seek to find the reason for that. Let's seek to find the benefit. And the first time we went into quarantine, I was really, you know, kind of like, oh, freaked out. So I did the philosophical geometry class, you know, and it was great. Like 50,000 people took that, which I was like, wow, it's probably more people taking that course than are studying geometry in university, because we don't even teach geometry past the 10th grade, right? I mean, it's like, and geometry should be a lifetime pursuit. It should be learning to speak with yourself. That's how important it is, right? That's exactly how I see it. And I was bummed out, but at the same time, I thought, okay, well, maybe there's a really good reason for all this. And then I was excited when it was time to go back to work and come back in my office and everything. And I like being around people and all that. And then about 2 weeks after my birthday, like, okay, we're going back in again. And I was kind of depressed for a little while. I was like, oh, bummed out. And I'm back at home, and I thought, you know what? Maybe I didn't learn what I needed to learn in the first quarantine.
Interesting. It's perspective.
Maybe I didn't learn what I needed to learn in the first quarantine. Maybe I need to learn how to just like enjoy life and relax. I'm never going to have this kind of time where I'm not traveling, where I can spend time with my two little kids, you know, a 4-year-old and 1-year-old. I would never have had this kind of opportunity. And so my wife was laughing because like one day I was like, 1 week, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to like go swimming every day. So I went in my pool, just hanging out in the pool. And she's like, what are you doing out here? I'm like, I'm just hanging out in the pool. And that's not me. That is not me. That is definitely not me. But I needed to learn. I needed to experience that. I needed to just be happy and content in that moment and not be thinking about, I got to get this done. I got to get this done. I got to get this done. Rather flip the whole equation and start perceiving it as, look at all these things I'm able to do. What are the things that I'm going to do? Right. And it's not because I need to do them to be good enough. I'm good enough already. I don't need anyone else's third-party validation for who I am or what I am or what my name should be or what my classification should be or anything. I don't need any of that. I still love and respect you all, even those that aren't so nice. Because as I look at them again, I will attract everything I judge until I no longer judge everything I attract.
That's very intuitive of you.
It's a deep thing. And now we are in quarantine again. And this time I'm like, okay, I get even more time where I can do the things I want to do. I can go introspective. And what is it that I didn't learn the last 2 times that I can learn this time? So like living in a state of bliss, I think this world around us, I'll tell you, I started with the story about the guy who was the Buddhist monk. I went to Japan in 2014 with a group of CEOs called YPO. And we went to visit a Shinto shrine. And there was a monk at the shrine who came up to me, and in Japanese, I used to live in Japan, so I speak Japanese. And he said to me, do you know the difference between heaven and hell? And I thought, well, I know a European joke, right? Which you may have heard. There's a European joke on what's the difference between heaven and hell. And it's like, goes like this, right? All the, in heaven, all the lovers are Italian, right? Management is Swiss. In heaven, all the food is, you know, made by French people, right? And the police are all British. They don't even carry guns. But in hell, the management's Italian, right? The lovers are Swiss, right? The food cooks are all English. And when you start thinking of those, and all the engineers are French, right? It's like,
Yeah.
It's like, you start to look at the world differently. It's all just about our perspective. So this story this guy tells me in the Shinto shrine, he says the difference between heaven and hell is this. In hell, you're all suspended. You all have these super long fingernails. Everyone's got super long fingernails, these twisty kinds you see in the Guinness Book of World Records and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so long you can't even pick up anything. And you can't cut your fingernails off. And so there's abundance all around you. But you can't experience it because there's no way to grab it. You can't touch it. You can't feel it. You can't experience any of it. So hell is this never-ending torment of seeing the abundance you could have but cannot experience. He said, in heaven, the identical conditions exist. Long fingernails and everything. The only difference is, in heaven, they figured out how to spear the things they want and feed each other.
Ooh, that was good. That was good. Wow. Which can be done in this world. It's the mindset.
It's all the mindset. It's not the experience. It's the perception of the experience. It can change everything.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. It seems to me that your perception of this reality is very, very layered, and you understand it in a whole nother, you're at a dimension that I'm not in. I can feel it. But I can appreciate it, and I respect that perspective. It's amazing to take in. I just wanted to ask one last question, if we can, we can end it with this. Just based on your experience, your perspective, all the stuff that we talked about, knowing how this reality right now, because of COVID, is shifting, the paradigm is shifting based on cause and effect, looking at the current circumstances, what do you perceive is going to happen, given the election stuff that's happening and the lockdowns? What do you perceive will be happening, let's say, the next 6 months? Let's just keep it to the US, because I know globally there's so much, but just in the US, what do you expect to happen? And you can answer that however you want.
You know what? I think that, and I feel, it's that combination of thinking and feeling.
Heart, brain, got to put them together.
And I think part of the important aspect of this is even just recognizing the importance of the one that you are not normally acquainted with. I'm bullheaded, not bullhearted. So I have to really recognize and embrace the side that is not me. And that's true for all the experience around me too. So first of all, I think the good news is that everything is as it should be. I remember one time Deepak Chopra, so I invested in Deepak's company, and he and I are pretty good friends. And Deepak has spoken for me at a bunch of different conferences and such. I'm doing a podcast this week on Friday with Major, the singer, right? From he's a good friend of mine. He came with me to Egypt, and he's really passionate about 432 hertz music. And I'm trying to get the next one, or the next few weeks, I'm not sure which one, is going to be Deepak. So I'll have Deepak come on, because he and I love the way he thinks. And I remember one time I was supposed to go with him. So he came to me. It's funny you mentioned the secrets of the universe and, in frequency and vibration, comment and energy. So I was hosting Deepak at my office, and I was showing him number theory stuff. And this is like 5-6 years ago. It's about the time I first met Nassim. And then I convinced Nassim to move to California. So I asked Nassim, I said, we're supposed to work together. I don't know on exactly what yet, but I have a feeling. And so you need to move your whole, if we want to do this, you have to move your whole research team from Maui to California. And I was blown away the next day when he said yes. So be careful what you wish for, right? I'm like, wait, you talked to all 30 people or 25 people that you have at your research facility? He's like, yeah, they're all going.
We're in.
This is nuts. So it was one of those type meetings, and Deepak was on the whiteboard with me, and I wrote on the whiteboard the symbol for Om. And now a lot of people don't know that there was a guru for Nikola Tesla. And his name was Swami Vivekananda, who actually came to visit the United States in like the 1890s.
I did not know this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's cool. Interesting.
And you can look it up. You'll find a whole bunch of stuff on it.
Sure, sure.
So Swami Vivekananda is someone who really increased the awareness for Nikola Tesla. And Swami Vivekananda, he came on a tour of the United States. And during that time, and that's when he met up with Tesla. But I had written on the board, on the whiteboard, the Om symbol. And it's actually a Sanskrit symbol that is in the shape of 3, 6, and 9. Right? So if I draw it out for you, you'll immediately recognize, you'll be like, wait, I never looked at it like that before. Because again,
I'm trying to break it down in my head, but I can't see it anymore because.
Okay. So I'm going to draw it for you. So you're going to see it.
Oh, wow. Now that you mention it, I see it.
Sanskrit. So I told Deepak, I'm like, that's 369. Right? Which, by the way, the diameter of Earth, or the radius of Earth, is 3,960 miles.
I was going to say it's a Fibonacci sequence, right?
Yeah.
It's all based on the 369.
The Fibonacci is 24 points. So if you do a Fibonacci sequence in digital root math, the sequence repeats. So digital root is just reducing everything to one digit, right? Like numerology does. Mm-hmm. Sequence of Fibonacci repeats every 24 cycles. Mm. Right? Perfect reflection. And so, we have 24 hours in a day, and it's interesting, the Earth spins on its axis 24 hours. And what the sum of angles of a 24-sided polygon is 3,960. That happens to be the exact radius of Earth. Wouldn't you think that'd be genius if someone came up with, oh yeah, let's connect time, 24 hours to a polygon, sum of angles would then be equal to the radius. Well, that's exactly what happened. Now, a lot of people would say, reductionists might say, well, those mile measurements are all arbitrary. No, they're not. None of consciousness is arbitrary.
You found, you're the one that discovered the Vitruvian Man and how it relates to the pyramids, which, by the way, I went to Egypt and I was actually at that pyramid outside, but I saw you went inside and I was like watching the video and just dumbfounded.
Oh, you were there when we were there?
No, it was in 2009.
Oh, 2009. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did my own traveling in
Well, you definitely got to go when we go again. You definitely have to come.
Because I want to be sucked into your life. Just let me know. And I love the conversation. I feel like we could be best friends in real life and just talk for days.
Most definitely can. And I would love to have you there. You would love it. You need to lay in the sarcophagus. There's no experience like it in the entire world.
When I let my beard grow out, that's the what, because I'm Brazilian. Brazilian Spaniard, but when I let my beard grow out, I go there and I have people just walking up and I'm like, well, no, I don't speak Farsi. Brazilian, Kaká, Pelé.
Habibi, Allah. So this idea that 369 embedded right in the Om symbol. And the Om symbol, again, is if there's one symbol. And by the way, when you lay in the sarcophagus, that is what you do. You do it. You're not supposed to do it. They don't like when you do it, but you do it. You lay. But
if you're Robert Grant, you can do it.
I spent five nights in the Great Pyramid. They give me a key. Okay, I have a key.
I know. I saw that.
And
that's amazing to me.
I know. It's like getting a frequent flyer program or something for the pyramid. That's pretty funny. But you lay in the sarcophagus and you find the right Om frequency, and it's just like this. You don't even have to open your mouth. You can do it like a mooing cow almost.
And then is everything just
then it starts to go whoa, 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 like that, like super loud. And then you can see electromagnetic pulses going over you. In fact, I took photographs of it that I could show you of my wife laying in the sarcophagus. You can see a light arc right over her. It's insane.
I would love to see that. That makes sense to me. It makes sense. Sound is the one thing that we can control and it's it's like a weapon, right? It's this power that comes out of us. So that makes total sense.
Well, and think about it. The speed of sound is 343 meters per second. And 343 meters per second is what sound goes through in air, right, as its medium. But did you know that the speed of sound is much, much faster through granite? And that's why these chambers are made of granite. The speed of sound through granite is 6,000 meters per second.
Wow.
So your entire experience with sound is different in one of these resonance chambers. So 6,000 meters per second, that's a huge difference. So think about 343, right? What is that, like 17 times or something? So 6,000, 17 and a half times.
Wow.
So sound travels 17 and a half times faster in that chamber than it does you and I talking right now.
I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense why there would be, like, the way that they build it is so they're like touching. I mean, they're like glued to each other almost, because it can't have that gap so that it can keep vibrating out.
All about the resonance. When you find that right resonance frequency, you can breathe in between, your ohm chant. It becomes an autonomic response. I did it for 4.5 hours, not even consciously knowing I was doing it. And I had one of the people outside the King's Chamber waiting for me. And he's like, wow, I heard you never stopped. It was like constant. I left. I had a full on, out of body experience. It was.
You just went metaphysical straight up.
That's the topic for a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
The pyramid, I don't believe, if it had a side benefit as a, energy device or something, that would have been a sole side benefit. It's not the means. It might be just a consequence, sort of like a consequence of the pyramid. The pyramid is really about ascension. The pyramid is about higher dimension. The pyramid is about learning who you are.
I can go so far into that one too. Yeah, and we'll definitely pause it there. I want to, for sure, have a follow-up interview with you, and just whenever, just putting it out there, because I feel like we have so much to talk about and expand on in this little time. It's already been 1 hour and 40 minutes. Wow. That's a record for me.
One thing I'll tell you, it also debuts something else that nobody else knows. You're the first to hear this. So you're getting 2 bits of new information on here.
Okay.
The other is, starting next week, I am launching you'll see it, a cryptocurrency.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That is it's our cryptocurrency based on the only one-time pad encryption that is overcomes the challenges of one-time pad because it's not heavy, right? It's fast, very, very fast, much faster than even regular blockchain.
A native chain, then, right?
It's a native chain, right? It's built on a Polkadot platform, and I've been working on it behind the scenes for several months now, years actually. And the encryption is the only uncrackable encryption. So it's a totally unique platform, totally unique opportunity. And this one-time pad encryption we're only selling 10 million coins total, max, right? So there's 1,000 uses of each encryption on there. There's a price for encryption today. It's like 3 cents per encryption. So that is the underlying asset that backs the cryptocurrency.
Oh, wow. I see what you're saying. That's genius.
But you just saw, that the current encryptions that use the factor base. So that's why I've been, trying to time all of this stuff appropriately, because I wanted to make sure people had the ability to use encryption to protect themselves, protect their transactions. And one day I actually believe that, we'll be able to, we all will need to have encryption to protect ourselves from all kinds of craziness. It's going to be the biggest topic in the world over the next 24 months, because look what happened with the elections. All this stuff with AI and all of us going into echo chambers of our own conditioning bias and selling our data and all this stuff, that all needs to be transmuted.
Decentralized.
Correct. So So now we have this coin. It's called a crown sterling, right? And it breaks into 1,000 bits, right, as well. So there's 1,000 encryptions on each one. And then you can use it for whatever, transactions, whatever, right? And, or you might just hold it, because as the world starts to understand that quantum computers are available and that the new encryption, our encryption is the one that can't be cracked, which you can just Google it on Wikipedia. You'll see it. It's all right here.
No, I trust me with crypto stuff. I'm very aware, and it seems to me that because I know that there's a lot of people going towards NFTs, non-fungible tokens, but it's still based on this old security layer, this old like that you mentioned. So you're working on something that I believe the majority of the industry hasn't even started thinking about yet.
So we have the only one-time pad that's a digital one-time pad. That is an encryption technique that cannot be cracked. But it requires that the key must be as long as the plain text. And that's the biggest challenge to it. Even NIST and everyone recognizes it's completely quantum resistant, right? It's the only one that is absolutely quantum resistant. And basically, it says it, right in here. One-time pads, however, will remain secure even with quantum computers. And so we've got the only one-time pad encryption. And it's going, on a native blockchain. And we overcame the limitations of the length of the data through using, very, very good mathematics. And we also use supervised machine learning to ensure that the keys never get reused in whole or in part. And we don't even distribute. We have a very unique way also of distributing, partial part of the key, so that part of the key doesn't even come to you through a way that can be intercepted at all. So it is it's very, very cool stuff. So I'm super excited about it. And, you'll see a bunch of videos and stuff on it.
Are you going to have an ICO or a pre-sale for it, or are you just going to?
So that's what we're doing right now. It's not an ICO. We're treating this as a security. So we want to be the first one that actually files a true S1 filing and gets listed. So we're not going to be just listed on the crypto exchanges. We hope to get listed on NASDAQ. And
I was going to say FinTech, or at least one of their representatives, it was like a state representative. He said that the scrutiny around SEC, or securities and those kind of tokens are going to be lifted a little bit. Like they're saying, just follow the rules of the road and you'll be grandfathered into whatever regulation we create. So your timing is impeccable. So,
that is what we're doing. We're actually classifying ourselves as a product security. So most companies wouldn't go and sell a product and say, I'm going to limit the number of people or the amount of products that ever could be sold. But we have, because we know this is a very unique circumstance. And it's only encryption today that backs cryptocurrency. And it's only encryption today that backs the dollar and every currency. And all of those encryptions are all based on the math I just showed you.
You could say you're the modern day John McPhee.
I don't know about
crypto.
John McAfee, no thanks. But no, I mean, look, the truth is that I think we're going through a major shift in the world, and this is all part of it. So everything is as it should be. Everything is as it should be. So watch out for it, because I have a feeling, we already know. We've already sold in pre-sales, and we only sold to a very small number of people that were our current investors, et cetera, but we've already sold 23 million of it, dollars. And people are buying it with Bitcoin too. It's pretty funny. So I think Bitcoin's great. I think Bitcoin is awesome. And when they want to change, we'll be more than happy to help them to find a new solution. It won't be the same as the solution, but to find a new solution. There's other ways to create quantum resistance. And it's not just quantum, you need new math resistance.
Right. Yeah. Wow. You just gave me a lot to process. And go ahead and send me an email about that pre-sale. I'm very interested. I've been in crypto since 2014. So I got into all the ICO when the ICO
you did well.
Happened. I did. I got a lot of resources out of it. I'm very, very grateful. And I call it the gamification of abundance. where they just like created it's just an industry that you can get into and really look at it with abundance. And you're proving that with this new technology.
So I'll send you the stuff on it, and for everybody else, once you see it, you'll want to, it's gonna move pretty quick.
I would say so.
It's a very limited. We're only selling 2 million tokens, and right now I think we've already gotten to it because we've only authorized to sell 2 million out of the total 10 million ever, right? That will be sold.
Yeah.
And we're already at like 1.5 right now. Oof. And we haven't even launched it yet. That's the crazy part about it. So it's going to be on our website. There's a portal on our website, and it's only for accredited investors as well. And for those of you that know what this is, because it's a pre-sale type of a thing, right? And
that's a regulation, especially for securities. You have to have accredited investors.
You do everything. I raised in crowd financing in my companies, close to $500 million total in companies that I founded and everything. Not crowdfunding. I don't do crowdfunding. I do crowd financing. So people that are all accredited investor. And, we've been through the SEC scrutiny and everything because we were the first company to do a large crowd financing. No one had ever done it before in 2012. Mm-hmm. And SEC came and they did a full investigation on what we had done and how we set it up and everything. And we got a full no action letter from them, which was fantastic. Mm-hmm. And when I got that letter back, I was like, okay, that's cool. And we want to make sure we do everything exactly white hat all the time.
Yeah, self-regulation is probably the best route, especially in this new industry, because there's so many gray areas, so many, and people abuse those gray areas a lot. So yeah, it's good that you're going down that road of just being self-regulated.
Well, thank you so much, Otto. It was so great. Where do you live, by the way? I know you're from Brazil, but.
Yeah, I moved to California 5 years ago, and then just 5 months ago, I moved to Arizona. So I'm in Arizona in the desert now.
Wow. Whereabouts in Sedona or where?
No, just north of Phoenix, Scottsdale area.
Oh yeah. I went to my MBA school was in Thunderbird.
Okay.
Phoenix, which is part of ASU's campus now.
Yeah. I'm just now getting familiar with the area and what's all here, but yeah, I have heard of the university there.
It was the #1 like international business school. Then I did the advanced management program at Harvard after. But I loved living there, except for the summer. It was brutal. It was
oh my gosh,
degrees, like
100. It was 132 for like a month in August. I think it was July or August. It was so bad. my AC was on all the time, and then I got my electric bill, $1,200 electric bill for 1 month. I was like, oh my gosh.
Wow. Well, if you ever get back out to California, give me a call. In Southern California. I live in Laguna Beach.
Okay. Yeah. I used to live in Palos Verdes, the peninsula area there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, 100%. I have a bunch of friends in Southern California, all that area. So I'll definitely hit you up when I'm back in that area.
Cool. Well,
awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. Like I can't say thank you enough for all the information and just the big pieces of news. I might even cut this into 2 parts because the first part was all metaphysical. The second part was all crypto. So I again, appreciate it exponentially.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you, sir.
All right, all the best. Bye-bye.
All the best.